I'm using manganese as an example for this webinar because of manganese's critical importance for increasing photosynthesis. I've described this elsewhere many times, but it bears repeating. When we think about our entire premise and framework of the work that we do at Advancing Eco-Agriculture is all based on the incredible upward potential that plants have to increase photosynthesis. Most plants that we accept as being common and normal are photosynthesizing somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20% of their inherent photosynthetic efficiency. So what happens if we could increase that to 40% or 60%? We get tremendously increased carbon sequestration and increased yields and increased plant performance. So when we think about the factors, is what is needed to move from 15% to 40% photosynthetic efficiency, what is needed to increase that? The macro kind of big picture perspective pieces that need to be in place are fairly elementary and straightforward. We need to have adequate levels of carbon dioxide. We need to have adequate levels of water. We need to have good chlorophyll concentrations within the plant. And we need to have sunlight. Those are the big four, right? Everybody knows that we need those four elements, but there's a fifth. And it's the only nutrient that bears mentioning on its own as a standalone, and that is manganese. The reason manganese is so important is because during the photosynthesis process, when water is absorbed either from the atmosphere or from the soil, the first step in the photosynthesis process is that the water molecule needs to be split into hydrogen and hydroxyl ions, H and OH. So we go from H2O to H and OH. And this process of splitting the water molecule is referred to as water hydrolysis. And the enzymes, the metalloprotein enzymes that are required to facilitate this process need manganese as the enzyme cofactor. And thus, because many plants are manganese deficient, manganese actually in many crops is the limiting factor that photosynthesis. So this is why in our work, in many cases, we have observed manganese to have significant impacts on increasing yield and increasing disease resistance because it's so foundational and so fundamental to increasing photosynthesis, and it's so commonly deficient.